Even over a year later, my review of Daredevil Born Again Season 1 is still probably the most controversial video on this channel, and after going back and rewatching it, yeah, I pretty much stand by everything I said. I don't stand by the horrible audio quality, that part is on me, but I still think Season 1 was extremely uneven, which made sense considering all the behind-the-scenes chaos we later found out about. Back then, I said I was optimistic for Season 2, because hopefully the production would have stabilized by then and the writers would finally get the chance to tell a more focused story. So, did they? Well, it's complicated, but before I go into details, if you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Season 2 picks up right after the events of the first season. Kingpin's now mayor of New York, enforcing a hardcore anti-vigilante policy. Aiding him is a task force composed of guys who wouldn't look out of place bullying Bart Simpson. Meanwhile, Daredevil's a fugitive, so Matt and Karen start organizing a resistance movement against Fisk. Bullseye is the wild card as always. He runs around trying to restore balance, quote unquote, after killing Foggy in Season 1. From the very first episode, the show immediately feels more confident than Season 1 did. One of the biggest problems with the previous season was that we barely got to see Matt actually be Daredevil. Here, the opening sequence alone gives us a full action set piece with DD taking down an armed smuggling ship connected to Fisk. And yes, the new black suit is awesome. I still prefer the classic red, but the black costume looks sick. He also finally has the double Ds. I mean, like a literal double D logo on his chest. I don't mean that Daredevil has huge boobs all of a sudden. Anyway, the attack on the ship and the attempt to cover it up afterwards becomes the main driving force of the season, as Matt tries to expose Fisk while Kingpin tries to paint Daredevil as a terrorist. And that central conflict works really well. But not every plotline does, because once again, Born Again has too many side characters and subplots. Did you realize that Daniel, Michael Gandolfini's character, never once interacts with Matt or Daredevil across 2 full seasons of television? The difference is that this season handles the supporting characters better than Season 1. The writers clearly realized that some of the side stories from the previous season just didn't matter. Thankfully, we no longer cut away from Daredevil fighting for the soul of New York so we can watch some career criminal crying about having to do prison time. Yeah, boo-hoo, jackass, I'm glad you're gone. But the show still occasionally loses focus. One second we're knee-deep into the war between Matt and Fisk, then suddenly we cut to Heather Glenn and Vanessa Fisk hanging out like they're in a Netflix drama for rich wine moms. Heather's smoking hot, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if it was necessary. Her showdown with Karen is pretty steamy though, I gotta say. Matthew Lillard's also here. That's cool. He doesn't do much, but he's here. See what I mean about having too many characters? Still, I disagree with the people saying Matt gets sidelined this season. He really doesn't. Daredevil remains the emotional and philosophical center of the story. He's the one making the key decisions, driving the resistance movement, and ultimately shaping the season's entire moral conflict. And that moral conflict is really the heart of the season. Mercy. We'll get deeper into that in the spoiler section because that's where most of my praise for this season comes from. But before that, let's talk about the technical stuff. Visually, the show is extremely solid. The color coding from Season 1 continues here. Daredevil surrounded by reds, Fisk by whites, Bullseye by blues. Very subtle, guys. I wonder if this is supposed to mean something. Nothing visually blew my mind, but I also can't think of any scenes that looked outright bad either. The action's fantastic as always. Daredevil truly fights like his comic counterpart. He's constantly using the billy clubs, the grappling hook, flipping around. This guy's basically one step below Spidey in terms of agility, and the choreography really sells that. Meanwhile, Fisk is portrayed like a horror movie monster. Matt fights with precision and agility. Fisk just brute forces his way through human beings like he's trying to replicate his favorite Mortal Kombat fatalities. Bullseye is also great this season. The show fully embraces the fact that his ability is basically weaponized Looney Tunes logic. When you see this man with an old school CD player, it's not because he's a hipster, it's because he plans on killing somebody with that. Soundtrack-wise, okay, look, the choir version of the Daredevil theme is pretty great. Outside of that, I genuinely cannot remember a single track. It's functional TV music. Acting-wise, everybody's solid across the board. Obviously, Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio continue to carry this franchise on their backs. At this point, these two could probably play Matt and Fisk while heavily medicated and still nail it. But I also want to give credit to Wilson Bethel as Bullseye. I really like the direction they took with Dex here. Instead of portraying him as just a complete sadist like some of the comics do, the show presents him as almost like a Hannibal Lecter type of figure, somebody who fundamentally doesn't understand morality and needs other people to sort of guide him through it. It's different from the comics, but I think it works. The only performance I was never fully on board with was the new White Tiger. And before anybody comments, no, it's not because I don't think women can be superheroes. It's because the show just doesn't sell her as one. At first, they play it smart. She's just sneaking past guards and stealing stuff. Okay, I can accept that. But by the end, she's taking down heavily armored personnel and... nah, I don't buy it. I know she has like a magical amulet or whatever, but nah. I buy Jessica Jones as a superpowered woman, so I know it's not me being sexist. It's just that the actress isn't very physically imposing and the choreography isn't that great. Overall though, if you are interested in Season 2 but are still kind of unsure, I say go for it. It's a noticeable improvement. I still don't think it reaches the level of Season 1 or 3 of the original Netflix show, but I would comfortably put it around the level of Netflix Season 2, the one with the Punisher. Now with that said, spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, leave now. But do like, share, and subscribe before you go. Okay? 3, 2, 1. The biggest turning point this season is probably Vanessa's death. Once she dies, whatever remains of Wilson Fisk's humanity dies with her. And apparently this became very controversial online because some people thought Fisk crying over his wife was out of character. I don't understand this criticism. This version of Fisk has always been deeply emotional. The guy literally caved a man's skull in with a car door because his dinner date with Vanessa got interrupted. He's a barely contained powder keg of emotions, and violence and intimidation were always the only ways he knew how to handle things. So when the woman he loves is dying in front of him and he can't solve the problem by cracking skulls, of course he breaks down. He doesn't know how to handle it. What made you think that he would? It's not character assassination, it's being consistent with what was previously established. Another criticism I've seen is people saying Fisk became too much of a Donald Trump parody this season. I'm sure that if you asked the writers about it point blank, they would confirm it, but I also don't think political inspiration automatically equals bad writing. The fact of the matter is, whether you like the current US president or not, you gotta admit he's fair game for criticism, just like any other public figure. Besides, the important thing is that the show never reduces Fisk into just a cartoon parody. They don't put Vincent D'Onofrio in orange makeup or have him wear a blonde wig. They treat Kingpin like a character, not a stand-in for people they don't like. Setting politics aside, the real core of the season is Matt's belief in mercy. Karen increasingly believes people like Fisk and Bullseye simply need to die, and with the amount of bodies piling up, it's hard not to understand her perspective. But Matt refuses to abandon his principles. The sanctity of life and the value of each soul are core tenets of Catholic faith, and thus of Daredevil, even at the very end. Karen gets arrested by the task force and put on trial. In the finale, Matt publicly reveals himself as Daredevil while exposing Fisk's crimes, leading to absolute chaos outside the courthouse as protesters, police, and vigilantes all collide. And when Fisk is finally cornered by an angry mob ready to tear him apart, Matt stops them. Not because Fisk deserves it in the strictest sense of the word, but because Matt refuses to become the kind of person who decides who gets to live and die. And that's why I actually really like the ending. Yes, part of me wanted a huge, brutal fist fight between Daredevil and Kingpin, but instead of giving Matt a physical victory, the show gives him a philosophical one. It reminds me a lot of Return of the Jedi or Avatar: The Last Airbender. The hero wins not by overpowering the villain physically, but by refusing to compromise morally. And Fisk doesn't exactly get away with it either. The original Netflix show already established prison doesn't work for him. He can rebuild his empire from behind bars. So instead, Matt forces him into exile. He's on a paradise beach somewhere, but away from the city he loves and completely alone. Meanwhile, Daredevil ends up imprisoned alongside a bunch of criminals he put there himself. He's surrounded by danger, and yet he's at peace, because he never gave up on his morals. The contrast between the two is fantastic, and it makes for a very powerful ending. So overall, Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is a good season of television. Not perfect, still bloated in places, still juggling too many subplots, but far more focused, emotionally coherent, and thematically satisfying than Season 1. The finale also sets up the return of the Defenders pretty heavily. Jessica Jones, you already saw in the trailers, and she shows up for the final few episodes. Luke Cage also gets a cameo. Now we just need Iron Fist to come back. Hopefully Finn Jones started taking martial arts lessons and creatine sometime in the past few years. So with the Mayor Fisk storyline finally concluded, I think it's time for the series to move on to new villains and new conflicts for a while. Season 2 was a major improvement over Season 1, and hopefully Season 3 keeps that momentum going. But what did you think? Did you enjoy Born Again Season 2 more than the first season? Did you even watch it? Let me know down below. And once again, make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. But we're not done with the MCU yet, as next time we'll be discussing the Punisher special. See you there.